It was the first on-screen death that many children remember. Even before there was Old Yeller, there was the loss of Bambi's mom. And yes, it left an indelible mark on the minds of so many. Generations introduced to the idea of loss, and thus reaping the rewards of coming into a greater maturity, that there are painful things in life, but you can overcome them. It was the adventure that Walt Disney himself guided to fruition, and yet today, what do we hear again? It is not suitable, folks, for modern audiences. So, with the live action or CGI remake, whatever we're calling this thing, it looks like the new Bambi will feature the message. Hello, folks, and welcome back to another wonderful day here on the WDW Pro channel. It's wonderful because you're with us. Thank you so much for choosing to share your time with us, inviting us onto your screens, onto your speakers. It is truly a joy when you do so. All right, folks, we're going to be diving into a conversation today all about Bambi. No, not the animated classic that Walt Disney himself guided, but instead, yes, it is a new and updated version yet again. Here we go. Seems like it's not good enough for Disney to make remakes anymore. They want to reboot these, and they do so sending these classic tales through the prism of their Hollywood prison-like views. The rest of the nation doesn't seem to agree, nor do the other Western nations, and yet here we are yet again. So what will they do with Bambi? This out of Bounding into Comics by John F. Trent, friend of the channel and collaborator with That Park Place, the new YouTube channel that you all should be checking out. Live action Bambi writer says film is being made so kids relate to it a little bit more, hence that it will soften Bambi's mom's death. Here's what it says. Lindsay Anderson Beer, who clearly said, "Hold my beer," who is currently promoting her Pet Cemetery Bloodlines film. That is too perfect for... There is nothing you could... No greater segue into Bambi. Folks, that's it. Just stop the article right there. Recently shared why she believes the upcoming live-action Bambi should be made in the first place. Look at poor Bambi. Oh, Bambi, it's going to get worse. Beer was asked by Collider's Perry Nemiroff. Nemiroff? How am I pronouncing that?
I think it's Nemiroff.
Nemiroff. I guess the question often is like, why? Why do we need another one? So going back to how you described Pet Cemetery, what is something about the classic version of Bambi that you think is important to hold tight to, but also how are you going to answer the question of why? Why do we need a new version? Beer answered, well, that's interesting about Bambi to me, is that it absolutely is a classic, and it's a beautiful love poem with such artistry to it.
Wow.
I do think there's an entire generation of children who have never seen the original, and that's very different from say, The Little Mermaid or Aladdin or the 90s heyday films that they've definitely already seen. I can tell you how many kids who've never seen Bambi, which is such a shame. She continued, the thing is, it's such a gorgeous film. It's a little bit different tempo than modern audiences are used to. Ultimately, here's what the article will go on to say. And folks, make sure you go check out this article on Bounding into Comics. We'll stop here, though, where it says there's a treatment of, not to spoil the plot, there's a treatment of the mom dying that I think some kids, some parents these days are more sensitive about than they were in the past. And I think that that's one of the reasons that they haven't shown it to their children, but I do think that there is a way to update Bambi. Again, with the reimagining of classic Disney. Here's my question, panel. Should we redo The Lion King and also get rid of Mufasa's death?
No, absolutely not.
Why? We are going to inoculate all children from any difficulties that they might actually face in the real world. Let's do it. Let's add the entire drama.
I'll let the panel go before I go, because Lion King is possibly my favorite Disney film of all time. So, okay, maybe I'll go.
I think that when the children are, she's absolutely right that maybe I think children are a little more sensitive to, in general, today than they used to be. I'm thinking of, what's that Jonathan Haidt article? It became a book. I think it was his second sort of book that went very big, but it was just basically about how we are protecting children to their own detriment nowadays. So they're not becoming psychologically healthy. They're not well-rounded because we're sort of saying, we're going to protect you from all harm. That's not what life is. and we're going to protect you from reality. And so I think if she's correct to point out, yes, maybe they're not seeing it because parents today are, shying away from showing their children something that involves a death and explaining what death is. So in order to get people to then watch it, you're going to do a live action that kind of skims over that. Like, no, I think you still handle it in a way where you're dealing in reality. You can't protect people from that. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here, but I think
No,
my
that all
point is
makes
that,
sense.
yeah, in the long run, you're not actually, what's that quote about? You don't prepare the road for the child, you prepare the child for the road.
Yes. And
And
that's
that's
been the
what gets you
biggest
that.
point of contention in parenting over the last 30 years or so is parents constantly argue we need to protect our kids, and they're conflating protect with prepare. I mean, you
Yes.
don't deliberately overexpose them to things that are beyond their abilities to comprehend, but you as a parent should be paying enough attention to your kid where you know what you can show them as they grow so that they can be prepared for the world beyond you, because that's basically it. You are not going to be there forever to watch over them. And if you are confident in your job as a parent, you should have less worries about your ability for your child without you. And I don't think we've seen much of that in the parent sphere for many decades. I mean, I would even say during the latchkey generation, you have a situation where parents actually felt that they over-prepared their kids, and the reality shows that they didn't really, because they got into a lot of trouble in those days. So the real world kind of prepared them a bit more than their parents at that point. But it was at least in a more reasonable kind of direction than just sheltering your children and essentially lying to them about the real world for many years beyond their own ability to comprehend and understand, to the point where now we have adults these days who freak out and shout at people when things don't go their way because they don't understand how the world really works.
Yes.
Well, it's the creation of the victim culture that we talk about in various ways all over the place in this sphere of ours, and it was created because of that very reason. Script, you and Carrie both hit it nail squarely on the head. The right now we've got a whole lot of people unprepared for the real world, and they've been intentionally so, whether or not it's through helicopter parenting or not. And of course, I'm the old guy on the panel, so I didn't wear a helmet or knee pads or shoulder pads or anything when I was riding my bike. I didn't, roller skating, skateboarding. There wasn't really the kind of protective gear that apparently we invented a need for at some point in time.
Well, helmets we definitely needed.
Culture never wore a seatbelt, and when his parents started to hit the brakes on the car, he placed his head firmly against the metal dashboard.
No,
Clearly ready to take on the world.
Usually the restraint system was a parent's arm, but again, there were seatbelts back then. They were just lap belts.
And you just didn't use them, of course.
Hey,
those were for sissies.
They didn't heat bit you.
I can recall, because of the way sedans were built back in the day, sleeping on the back deck in the back window on long road trips, sleeping up on the back deck in the back window for parts of road trips. I can recall that. And riding around in the backs of pickup trucks and things like that. You used to do stuff like that. You used to be gone. And again, and we say this a lot, and I say this a lot, but you used to be gone for the entire day. You made it home before the streetlights came on and you were safe. And we stopped letting kids in those situations, and we created a whole lot of future victims. One of the worst programs ever created was Stranger Danger, because it didn't actually prepare the kids. They just walked away from what they might fear was a potentially bad situation. They were never put in a position to recognize that preemptively, because they never
or to assess.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just too perfect. Okay, so let's talk about Lion King, since that was the original question, and everything that you all have said, in my opinion, has tied into what the Lion King represents.
Yeah.
You have Simba, who is a little boy, and his big song is "I just can't wait to be king." And what does he describe? He basically describes Scar.
He
getting
describes narcissism,
right?
Narcissism and hedonism.
And so Scar removes Mufasa. He removes the father figure from Simba. And so Scar, being the ultimate of service of self, and removes the father figure that would correct all of these things in Simba, and says, no, it is better for you, and his friends convince him to go live their life of leisure out here. Eat bugs, you grand majestic creature, abdicate your responsibilities, go out into the wilderness and eat bugs.
It's starting to sound like Lion King was more prescient than I knew. Continue,
Yes,
Jonas.
Yes.
Well, and there's all these biblical aspects of it. You're more than what you become. You have forgotten me. All this stuff, but the whole thing here is that the lion is there to be the king of the domain, and none of that happens if Mufasa stays in the picture. None of the learning, none of the realizing that he needs to take his place. He has to murder Mufasa in order to take the place. Mufasa has to die because that is what has to happen in order for a king to become the king, a prince to become a king.
Well, and so that you can
there is
understand
no
the
story
full.
if there is no death of Mufasa, and
You
and
have
all
to
of Simba's
understand the
journey is cut
malignant.
off.
You have to understand the malignant nature of full unbridled narcissism and hedonism, and that is what Scar does. Is Scar takes out. Well, it is the issue of Cain and Abel. It's the spirit of Cain. That's what's happening there. Is that Scar is angry because his pattern of behavior does not bring about success, and rather than adjust his behavior such that he brings about good in the world, he instead strikes down out of revenge he who is good, who is bringing forth virtue into the world, and then his child then escapes to go seek out that same, as you said, leisure, and realizes that is meaningless. But in the case of Bambi, we're talking about something very similar in that Bambi, ultimately the mother in the original film is the one who lays down her life for the son. It is the ultimate gift of maternal care in that she follows the fawn. She doesn't lead the fawn. And that's implicit in the story. The story is that the mother lets the fawn run ahead so that she lays her own life down, and then the father takes Bambi out of innocence and into the mature path forward. And that mature path forward cannot fully be manifested until loss is learned. And that is the sorrow of our own existence, is that we are not fully mature until we also suffer said loss. Now, can I bring a little bit of levity after that?
Yes.
Okay, here's the levity. I
There
want to
was
play a clip.
There was a
Go ahead,
farting
Jonas.
pig. There was a farting pig in the movie specifically for this reason.
How darn you? How dare you? Not in front of the kids, Jonas. So I want to play a clip. It's from a comedy that was from the late 70s. And I just want us to see how we once dealt with children and with moral issues, and we did it in a humorous way. And I'm going to play it, and I want everybody out there to just think, could we ever do this again? Okay, could we ever make this joke again? Here we go.
Pianos, amps, mics, the works. Now go on, get. Breaks my heart. Boy, that young going bad.
All right, so Ray Charles blind, of course, firing, at the child who's even in the comedy, it's recognized. Don't steal and get on the right path. And the funny part of that, of course, is that Ray Charles is blind. So, but we have lost our way in this world, in that we inoculate children today. You could never do that. You could never show a death. You can't have Mufasa. You can't have Bambi's mom die because it's just too hard. Life is too hard. So get me the safe space.
Well, that's a good question. Do we know that in the live action remake, Bambi's mom isn't going to die, or do we know that it's not going to be shown? Because those are very two different things.
Well, it wasn't shown in
She
the
will-
original. I just have to point that out. The death of Mufasa, we don't see the actual moment of death for Mufasa or for Bambi's mother.
Right. Well, we hear the audio for it, and
Yeah.
there's enough imagery
yeah.
around it as opposed to it being blatantly displayed. But
How many folks out there in the chat, tell us in the chat if you can still hear the sound of that from Bambi from your childhood, if it left that kind of an impression in you where you can still hear that part of the movie. Go ahead, Script. I interrupted you to make that point, but go ahead.
No, I
please.
mean it's a interesting question to ask, because right now we don't know. One thing that did kind of surprise you guys, I'm certain a lot of people in the chat, is the fact that Beer lauded the original Bambi.
Oh, that's a good point. You know what? And that needs to be said.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if she's coming at it saying the original's great, fantastic, and she wants to do right by it, and she understands the current day audience perception with regards to death and tragedy and trauma, well, listen, there's nothing saying you can't start a story of Bambi where he's on his own, and we learn through actions and dialogue and him being alone that his mother was killed. And it might not be worded in such a direct way, but if she's able to nail it to the point where it's implied enough and that you feel for Bambi, but not onto the level of trauma that would otherwise be of seeing Bambi's mom, hearing something happen, and then seeing Bambi crying and alone, you still get the same inciting incident, but it just happens off screen. Now, I'm just speculating here as how do you reconcile that, given how studios are the deciders when it comes to what is going to be shown, especially in a cartoon or live action remake, and especially with whom they're going to hire, right?
Script, what I'm going to say to you on this is that this is the same issue that I ran into with Lauren Connor. So here's what I ran into with Lauren Connor. We were watching Ahsoka, and Lauren is extraordinarily intelligent. And Lauren was not enjoying Ahsoka. And Lauren, what he did, though, was he said to me, Pro, they might do this. And he laid out in a very intelligent way the possibility that they could elevate the entire show if they did this and this and this. And maybe there's this secret, thing that Filoni is doing behind the scenes. And this is where we're going to arrive at. And it's going to be amazing. And he said, it's unlikely, but this is a possibility. And I said, well, Lauren, I've been burned so many times. I would love to believe that that's what they're going to do. But I can't believe it because they always go for the lowest hanging fruit. And I'm going to say the same thing to you. I would love it if this is actually, if this is wishing to be a better version that we could all love about Bambi that is deeper and perhaps takes us in a new direction. It's just I've been burned so many times by Disney, I automatically now go to that belief of watch them, here they go again. And in the case of this director, hold my beer, right?
You're right.
I mean, listen, Disney has that track record. There's no denying it. It doesn't matter at this point what she says today. The moment she starts getting into production and then getting into promotion, it's whatever Disney's mouthpiece is telling her what to say publicly.
Yeah.
And you think that's what's also gone on with Snow White and the Seven Dirty Hippies?
It's gone on with almost every Disney-related movie since the dawn of time that's been promotion. You never hear the honest opinion of a lot of the people working involved. It's whatever the Disney tribe wants. Same thing with Warner Brothers, Sony, MGM, United Artists, Fox. That's par for the course. When you're on the press junket, you're on promotion, these are the talking points that you stick to. And if you go off them, you might compromise your career.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Don't forget that this is not just a conversation between all of us on screen, but rather this is a dialogue with you. This is a community endeavor. So drop a comment down below and let us know what's on your mind. We care, we read, we often respond. And folks, as always, we bid you adieu with this refrain. Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.